Welcome to the Challenges of Change, the podcast where we explore the transformative journey towards self-improvement and personal growth. I'm your host, Laura, a mindset coach in the health and fitness industry, here to guide you through the hurdles that life throws at you. In each episode, we'll delve into practical strategies and insightful discussions to help you manage stress, regulate your emotions, upgrade your mindset, and ultimately reclaim your sense of worth. I'm thrilled to have you join me on this journey of change, challenges, and self-discovery. And we are back for another episode of the Challenges of Change. And today I have a wonderful woman to join me, someone I got to meet through the Tampa Chamber, Stacy Miller, and she has a beautiful journey. When we jumped on our call, it was like stars aligning in terms of our missions and how we want to empower women in this world. But rather than me telling you her story, Stacy, thank you for coming on. Why don't you tell them about yourself?
Laura, first of all, thank you for having me. And yeah, I felt the same way when we spoke. I'm so glad that we were able to connect and that we're able to do this episode today. So I'm Stacy Miller. I am a certified financial planner and the founder and CEO of Bayview Financial Planning. And my firm is an independent fee-only firm, and I launched it this year, 2024, with the goal to be an ally for women, especially women in transition, like widows, women veterans. So I think that's a lot of the reason why you and I felt such a kinship in our earlier conversation.
Absolutely. There's a lot of people who kind of use their pains or their past to inspire. And I know that you have a lot of activity in the veteran world and a lot of moving. I remember some of your stories, including the scarf story, but I'll keep that one offline. Uh, and it really is, I remember one of the things you told me about like how the wives of veterans aren't really considered in a lot of these experiences. And it's when it comes to money, it's really hard to know who to trust. And I think the fact that you are so relatable and you have that experience and educated yourself so that you can create that transition, transformation alone just makes it really easy to trust you. Um,
Well, well, I appreciate that. That's a beautiful compliment, and I thank you for your kind words. Laura, just a little bit more background. I'm a military spouse. My husband served almost 30 years in the Army, and I wasn't always a financial advisor, but I can relate to women and veterans in a way that I think allows me to have that empathy, that relationship-based interaction, as opposed to that, financial transaction, because I feel probably the same way that a lot of my clients feel, in that my future financial security right now and in the past is really tied to my spouse.
mm,
So, it's his retirement, because I had to move 14 times in 28 years. I had to quit jobs, or I had periods where I wasn't working as I was raising the kids, or whatever it is. So much about my future financial security, my retirement, is tied to my husband. We've been married 30 years. So that's feeling pretty secure, but you never know how things transpire in this life. So I can definitely understand and empathize with how that insecure feeling can make women feel like, frozen and of untaking action, or things that started this. I have the knowledge, I have the expertise to be able to be their ally and to be a partner and help them move forward and create their own independence. And that's why I launched the firm, is, not this year, because I launched this year, but 5 years from now, I will be, totally independent in my finances, I hope. And that will give me more secure feeling, not just, in my bank account, but in my heart.
Ooh, well, I feel like we are diving into the episode already. So, for the listeners, we are going to be discussing money mindset and just what you shared, kind of that like commitment to your partner, but there is a lack of security, especially with, raising kids, moving around all the time. And I like that you use the word security because I'm curious, kind of within your own experience, moving as many times as you did, quitting jobs, just kind of being in that role and kind of how you've learned the importance of financial independence and financial security. How has your money mindset shifted or changed?
A lot of financial advisors use some common terms, and you highlighted security. That is one that for me is the key, right? There's financial independence, there's financial freedom, come work with me. You can be financially independent, you can be financially free. Like, yeah, of course, we want all of that. But for me, the winner is financial security because that's what we all want is that security blanket. Um, that's what I think I want and what my target demographic wants more than independence, more than freedom is that security, that knowledge that, do I have enough to retire? Am I doing things correctly? When you have that security, you have that peace of mind. And so that word for me just resonates more than some of the other terms that the industry uses.
Absolutely. So I've dealt with some money mindset stuff just because when you become a life coach, money is one of the pillars you learn about. Um, and it was very curious experience for me to be asked certain questions that I never really considered about, my upbringing and how that influenced my understanding of finances and et cetera. So, how would you explain what a money mindset is to people?
Um, Money mindset is just some preconceived notions, some values, some feelings that are inherent that you bring to the table when you're talking about money. So, some people, one of the questions that I ask clients is, what's your first money memory? Sometimes they'll tell me about they couldn't buy a pair of shoes because their parents were super thrifty or they didn't have very much money in their family. And so, the lack of abundance is kind of a money mindset that has carried throughout their life, or, all different kinds of things. So, there are things that are predisposed to kind of affect and influence how you are taking action with your money now. So it's that money mindset. And then you can broaden it out to there's a lot of societal things that reflect money mindset, like the latte, for example. Probably you, Laura, and a lot of your listeners have heard that you shouldn't buy a latte. And of course, that's directed towards women in a derogatory fashion, right? It's the women that are buying the lattes that are overspending there. And if they didn't spend money, the $5 on a latte, it's really like $6 now. But if they didn't spend that money on a latte, then they could be rich and they could be financially secure. And the math isn't math in there. So, that's part of the money mindset too, is that societal expectations, and especially as it applies, I think, to women, oftentimes in a derogatory fashion. And then you have on social media,
Mm,
finfluencers is what I call them, financial influencers. And the majority of them don't have the credentials, the expertise that I carry as a certified financial planner. A lot of them just have maybe an experience, or maybe they just learned that it's an Instagram way to, capture some fees or something. I don't know. But they're sharing investment advice, financial advice without those credentials, and they're steering people wrong. And
mm,
so that creates another mindset of, well, I thought I could do this. Well, yeah, you really can't do that. It's not safe. It's not, a good idea or whatever. So there's so many things that play into that money mindset. Just the internal dialogue from growing up, maybe your relationship with your partner, your spouse, and how society interprets money, especially I think if you're women.
Absolutely. Brilliant explanation. And I really like how you commented on some of the like unspoken messages that everyone gets around different things. Women have certain ones geared towards them, men have certain ones geared towards them. Um, and I know for me, when I've talked about it with clients, I just say it's your relationship with money, both conscious and unconscious. And we do have to go into like the beliefs around money, what were the lessons? And like I know one of the things I remember hearing growing up was like, money doesn't grow on trees. And it became like a joke in my family, but I don't really even know. Like it's just one that's there, but I'm still unconscious to what it means to me. If I had to hint, it's probably something about scarcity and things of that nature. And that's kind of what my first question is around like your beliefs, because in my line of work, when I'm working with people, a scarcity mindset is very abundant in our, ironically, abundant in our society. Not thin enough, not successful enough, not happy enough, you name it. Anything with the word enough normally is indicative of a scarcity mindset. And transparently, that was my limiting belief too. I didn't think I was good enough. And I had an interesting dance with my financial scarcity mindset a couple of years ago. I'd really kicked a majority of my not enoughness and scarcity mindset around, my weight, my personality, what success meant. And as inflation was happening, I felt this like deep motivation to like grind out, get more money. And it was motivating me to take inauthentic behaviors in certain ways. And then there was one night that I was just exhausted and I was continuing to try and push myself through it. And I remember thinking, I have to keep going or it won't be enough. And I'm not someone who like hears my voice in my head very often. I'm more of an energetic person. So the moment I hear it, I'm like, you son of a bitch, did you just say not enough money? I was like, you sneaky little crap. Like, that's what that is. And I like put my computer down. I went and I like angrily told my husband, like, my stupid brain was telling me that this is happening. And I think I share it because I do this mindset work in myself. And trust me, it's a fun game in there, but also with people every day. And it is so easy to be bamboozled by the beliefs that you hold. And to your point with the messages, the subtle messages that we're getting, not even about, how to save money, but like how to be successful, how to be sexy, how to be accepted. I mean, status is a huge thing in women's world, and a lot of name brands capitalize on that. And you have to spend
Sure.
a lot more money for a name brand. So this all really does work together that when you're coming from a space of I'm not good enough, you're going to see how that influences your actions. So I'm curious now that I've, filibustered, what have you noticed within like a scarcity mindset with your clients and I guess the challenges that that poses?
Probably the number one question that I get asked by clients is, do I have enough to retire? Or am I doing enough now so that I will be able to retire? Am I going to have to work until I die? It's that fear. And, some of that is we have a crystal ball and it's foggy, right? We don't know how long we're going to live. We don't know what the world is going to bring. We don't know, you know, so many things. And because of all of those things, that scarcity mindset, that, fear leads to inaction more times than not. And that inaction is something that, right, that's what I'm trying to overcome as, being an ally, being a partner. Like, okay, let's take a look and see if you have enough. And if you do, let's see how we're going to make it last. And if you don't, let's see how we're going to get you to the point where you want to be.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that's the number one question that I get. Do I have enough to retire? Am I doing enough, to be able to retire in the future? Whatever stage they're coming to me, that's absolutely the number one question that I get all the time. And Another part of that is a lot of my clients have kind of sudden money situations. They have an inheritance, maybe, or they're a widow.
Mm,
And not only is there kind of that kind of question, but there's an emotional attachment to that money.
mm,
So, you think windfall, you think lottery, yay, I've got this money. Now everything's gravy because money equals happiness, right? No, is the answer, by the way. Um, money can be a tool to get you to that happy place, but money does not equal happiness. But a lot of those sudden money situations, you're divorced, you're widowed, even if you get a lottery winning, sometimes there's such an emotional turmoil that's going on that, there's things that need to be addressed before we're taking action with the money
mm.
because if it's a spouse's money, you feel unworthy or like you're spending their money or there's so many complicated things going on that all tie into that money mindset when there's especially those sudden money situations.
And I really applaud you for starting at the source. And I think that's another reason why we were so aligned is because I'm not a Band-Aid person. I don't like putting a Band-Aid on a problem, knowing the problem will come back. That just like if we're gonna invest in the effort, like let's invest it in a way that has a lasting result. And that was part of my frustration when I was a personal trainer, help people lose weight. They'd keep it off for 6 months and then all of a sudden it'd start coming back. And I didn't understand it because we built the habits. But ultimately, if you're thinking in a certain way, it's a willpower thing. So I'm curious, well, two things. One, I feel like is a quick answer, but I'm gonna ask both, answer accordingly. Uh, do you have people define what enough is for them? And when you're listening to people kind of talk, and this might just be like a me thing because I'm trained to listen and understand what that reflects in terms of their mindset. But when you're listening to your clients talk, are you recognizing like patterns within how they communicate that are indicative of money challenges?
Two great questions, Laura. I'm going to take your first one first. Is there a number that is enough that I am pointing my clients to? No. The answer is no. I do financial plans that are more scenarios
Hmm.
because the one thing I can tell you about a financial plan is the moment it's done, you need to reassess it because something has changed in your world or something has changed in the world, right? There's so many things going on, and so you're the financial plan is a living thing, which is why I don't love the one and done financial plans because once you have them, oftentimes they sitting on a shelf and they're not utilizing my recommendations. But even if they do utilize my recommendations, it's it's out of date by the time they're taking action. So the financial plan is a scenario or a number of scenarios. There's not like I must have a $5 million nest egg or whatever that number is. There's not a one answer for everybody, and there's not a one answer for any one client. It's a scenario that we're have left and right margins on that we're addressing because so many things are changing. And if you get fixated on that one thing and you achieve that, then what happens when the world changes again? So that's the first part. And repeat the second question for me, Laura.
I was almost nervous you were going to ask that, so I thought about what it was again. Uh, when you're listening to clients, kind of new client and experiencing them, can you recognize in how they're communicating with you, kind of what certain money challenges they might be experiencing?
Sure. I'm not a counselor, but I am trained and I'm continuing to train in the human side of finance. I can interpret those signals. Like I said, one of the questions I ask is, what is your first money memory? And you can pull a lot from those stories. I really try to be as quiet as possible in the meetings and let the clients speak to me so that I can understand them, where they're coming from, what their goals are, what their values are. Being an active listener is the most important role that I have in a client meeting. Of course, then, executing on what they want to do, but sharing that back to them and say, well, what I'm hearing you say is this. Is that true? And then they can say, oh, stop the presses, Stacy. No, that's not true.
Right.
But I've had them say that and then come back at the next meeting and say, you know what, that kind of was true. I had to think about it for a minute and come to terms with it. Um, but that's why I love the financial planning relationship. My firm is based on that relationship, not that transaction. It's not like, thank you, give me your money. I'm going to invest it for you. I'll talk to you in 5 years if you ever need that money again. It's that relationship so that we can together build that scenario, that financial planning scenario that's going to work best for you, for the client. Might be different than this other client over here and this other client over there. But yeah, so I'm interpreting that. I'm a very empathetic person. So I do hear a lot. And sometimes I misinterpret. That's why I repeat back and say, is this what I'm hearing you say? Does this sound right? And sometimes I get it wrong, of course. But yeah, the human side of financial planning, the behavioral finance is very important to me and in my client relationships.
Absolutely. And I'm like, oh my God, we should just like partner and I should be there with you and be like flag on the play, that means scarcity. But I think it like again, speaking to your genuine nature, like trust is so important when you're choosing who to hire specifically with your money. If you ask me, like, yes, with a therapist or a coach, sure, I'm sure there's a degree of trust because you're going to be super vulnerable with that person, but we're also bound by certain laws, as are you. But your laws aren't about trust as much. And that's kind of seeing that your main demographic is women, we tend to be very intuitive and like being able to feel that someone actually cares to help us be set up for security. I think let alone like just puts the stress at ease. And I really do commend you for not only the active listening, it's something that I do in coaching all the time. And even if I get it right, and record my meetings so I could say, no, you literally said that. But it doesn't matter whether I'm saying it right or wrong because just hearing it back, it's like, no, that's not 100% it. So I think that alone just really helps your clients have the space to discover, what really is true for them. Um, and you started to talk kind of about fear and emotions, and naturally, we agree that emotions are not, I'm sorry, that money is not happiness. It is a tool that can create opportunities for happiness, sure, but it does not create happiness alone. And ironically, based on where our emotions are in our brain, they are located in something called the motivational triad. So the main purpose of our emotions is to motivate us. So when we have emotions about money, it's trying to motivate us towards or away from something, but our inability to understand our emotions, which like plug for emotional regulation right there, actually influences our financial independence, freedom, security, whatever it is that you are looking for. So when you experience clients who are very heightened in their emotions, be that fear or stress or anxiety, how do you approach it?
Baby steps is kind of the way I guess I would say. It- when I have a new client, they probably came to me with a problem that needs to be solved imminently, and there's probably a long list of other things that are not imminent. And so, depending on what their money mindset is, depending on if they have fear of the relationship, I just had a client meeting recently, a new client, and at the end of the meeting, she said, she told me how stressed she was to be in the meeting. Just talking about money was uncomfortable to her. So in the second meeting, I tried to keep it light and I said, okay, how are you feeling? Are you just as stressed today as you were? What can we do to alleviate that? But so there's fear of talking about money. There's fear of running out of money. There's so many different fears. But often the reason they've called me is that there is something imminent that needs to occur, to be done. They have, money that needs to be invested. Maybe they inherited it, or they're losing their job, or they're retiring, and they've got to figure out the next steps. So there's something there. Well, I try to take like small doses, because if I say, okay, let's just take all of this and invest it like this, and we're going to take care of it, it's overwhelming. And when you're in a space of fear, that's too much. But sometimes it's just, okay, let's just gather all your documents and let's look at them and see what we have going on. And that feels a little bit more comfortable. And so you just have to do it in baby steps and understand that the fear is there. Be, approachable. Stop if you need to stop and take a break. I'm not opposed to that. Like, I am the person that likes the agenda and I like to get things done like this, but I absolutely recognize that I'm not always on the same sheet of music with a client. So I have to take a deep breath and, back off that a little bit and be in the space where my client is. And that is often slower than I want to go, but that's okay, because, we're going to get it all done, and we're going to get it done at the pace that they're comfortable with.
We can have cocktails and another time and vent about frustrations of wanting our people to move further along. And it's not about the pace, but we have that understanding in our own separate fields of like, this is okay, this is safe, whatever it might be. And our understanding does not always translate to theirs. They need that experience. And it is a very humbling lesson in patience, if you ask me, to be regularly reminded that what's most important isn't, make the most as fast as you can. Or in my mind, I'm always, how can I save my clients the most money by helping them get to the next stage and then helping them graduate? But at the end of the day, I'm here to serve them at their pace. And ironically, I was going to ask you about, how you nurture your clients' funds or kind of nurture their experience. And you kind of told me at like, letting their emotions be valid and real and giving them permission to take a break when they need to, helping them understand at whatever pace suits them, even if it frustrates you, which again, with you. And I think it's so important in not only building that trust, but helping them kind of heal some of their money mindset in creating a lot of empowerment. Because if we really look and rewind the clock, I don't know, you might know this. I don't think I remember, but like women couldn't have credit cards in their names until like what, the 1950s or something like that?
Oh no, that was the 70s and
70s.
80s. So
So like we were, not only do we get these subtle messages within society about shaming us around how we spend money, but we've largely been discouraged to think about money, communicate about money
Mhm.
for decades on decades. And what financial freedom means and like the relationship you want to have with money, I think it really is very important in understanding like who you want to be and how you want to live. It's kind of like the lifestyle you want to embody from a like financial healthy place.
Yeah.
So I'm curious because you create these financial plans or scenarios for people, and they kind of get to lean into the ones that feel the most aligned. How regularly do you encourage them to visit their plan, think about it? Like, is it like budgeting? Is it more expansive and like a bigger worldview of like a yearly thing? Tell me more about it.
So, a financial plan, the way I do it is comprehensive. So it's not just investments, it's retirement, it's risk management, which is insurance. Do you have the right insurance to protect the investments and the, retirement nest egg that you're building? The estate plan. just recently I went to Minneapolis and I went to Paisley Park, which is the home of Prince and where his home and studio were. And he died in 2016 and his net worth was $150 million and he didn't have a will. So, you don't have to have $150 million to have a will. You have to don't have to have very much. Wills are pretty inexpensive to have, but if you're not deciding how your assets are going to be distributed, the state is going to. So those are all pieces of it. If you want to be philanthropic, how you want to make charitable contributions, all of those things. And so once we've created the initial plan and those scenarios, part of that conversation that we have to kind of alleviate some of that fear, we just talked about this. I did with on a conference earlier, is we allow them to kind of crash the plan because the client has the opportunity to kind of change the scenarios and, well, what if this extraordinary thing or this terrible thing occurs? How does your plan react? And so you try to crash it, and then oftentimes it's not as bad as they thought it was going to be until they saw when they crashed it, that the sky didn't fall. So that alleviates some of those fears. And then we revisit a couple times a year. But again, we're doing it piecemeal. So we're not reviewing the whole plan. Maybe this meeting, once a year, we're going to talk about your estate plan. And let's make sure your beneficiaries are all up to date because I can't tell you how many times I've seen ex-spouses receive, life insurance benefits or, something along those lines because those beneficiaries weren't updated. So we go through that once a year, once every other year. We are always reviewing investments, of course, but maybe in the next meeting in the next quarter or a few months down the road, we're going to talk about, your life insurance policies. Do you have the right homeowners? We just, we're living in Florida. We just had 2 hurricanes. How many people do you know, Laura, that either didn't have the right homeowners, enough homeowners, or flood insurance? So, you know, that they're probably dipping into their investment account or their retirement nest egg if they didn't have those preparations done correctly. So we meet a couple times a year, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, depending on how much the client wants to meet. And we're just hitting a different topic, a little bit piecemeal at a time, so that over the course of a 2-year period, we'll hit the whole plan and then we'll do it again. Because things are changing in their lives and things are changing in the world that just warrant a second look.
Mm. I mean, absolutely. After the hurricanes, it was definitely heartbreaking to see the people who were not prepared and even the people who were prepared. Like it's really a hard scenario, and I think that's what part of the security is like knowing you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's to protect yourself. God forbid something happens. Um, so I'm curious, if you were to give our listeners kind of 3 red flags and 3 green flags, like 3 things to do and 3 things to not do or to look out for, what comes to mind?
I'm going to start with the green flags. The first one is to take action, whatever that action is. If you need help, hire a CFP. If just get organized, whatever that is, take action. Okay. Another green flag I'm going to say is take it full advantage of your workplace retirement plans. Most of them, a lot of them have a matching opportunity. Maybe the employer matches up to 5%. Well, then put 5% in there. If you can put more in, then terrific. But at least take advantage of that workplace retirement benefit that you get. And the third one, talk about money. Talk about it with your mothers, your sisters, your daughters. Talk about money because the more that you talk about it, the less fear there will be, and you'll understand, things a little bit better. Talk about it with your parents so that you understand, what their will looks like, what's going to happen when they pass along. Make sure your children understand your financial situation so that they will be able to understand what's happening should something happen to you. So those are my 3 green flags. 3 red flags. don't do nothing. So that's my first red flag, which is the opposite of the green flag there, right?
Okay.
Is taking action builds confidence when there's a lot of fear there. So doing nothing is a red flag for me. Um,
Can I ask a quick follow-up on that just for like
yeah,
clarity?
yes.
Um, I mean, nothing over ever is obvious, but like, is there like if you're not doing anything for a week or a month, like is there a specific amount of time that you would like encourage people to recognize like you haven't really been doing anything? That means you need to take action.
Great clarification, Laura. Thank you. You need to have your finger on the pulse of your own finances. So even, for example, if your spouse is the primary financial manager in your home, you still need to have your finger on the pulse of it. So at least annually,
Mm.
be meeting with your financial advisor and go to that meeting with your spouse if that's what's happening, or review those statements, when you're compiling them for tax returns, whatever it is, so that you know what is happening in your financials. So I would say at a minimum annually. But don't stick your head in the sand. Like we each need to be responsible and understand our own financial security. And that doesn't mean that you have to become a certified financial planner and have all the knowledge that I have. It just means that you have your finger on the pulse of it. And then if you have questions like, do I have enough? Am I going to be able to retire? Then you can
Hire
ask those
you.
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Okay, thank you. That definitely does clarify. The other red flag, sorry to.
Okay, no, that's okay because I hadn't thought of them yet. So the other red flags are um, don't hire a financial planner or a tax preparer or someone without doing your research. So I always recommend to my prospects, you should talk to at least three people because your nest egg, your financial security, I think is just as important as your children. So, would you hire the first babysitter that comes across your neighborhood sidewalk and says, "Hey, I'm a babysitter. Would you like me to watch your kids?" No, you would do some research. You would look at, the information available online and see, have they gotten in trouble in the past?
Mhm.
What are their fees like? So, don't just take for granted whatever you're reading or whatever you're told. Do your own research. And so that's my second red flag. And gosh,
Third one's always the hardest.
yeah. Third red flag. Don't not buy the latte.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah,
Because
just
it's
a double
not,
negative there. But
yeah.
I'm stretching for it. But don't not buy the latte because here's why. If the latte is going to give you the caffeine to give you the energy that you need to work hard, then you need to buy the latte. Or if it's going to give you a little bit of joy, right? That warm, yummy love in your day to help you just, manage through your day, then buy the latte.
Hmm.
So don't not buy the latte. That's my double negative third red flag for you.
I actually love that one because, one of the things my grandma used to say to my dad, because she passed away before I was old enough to remember anything, was don't let money be the reason you don't create memories. And I
Yeah.
mean, you don't need a ton of money. I mean, you can go to the park and create a memory, and that's completely free. But if the latte is something that like, and it's a symbol, right? If that's the thing that makes you feel like you, and it's the little splurge that kind of helps you enjoy your life, that's not the area to cut. And I think, what I really appreciate about your overall message is how holistic it is. It really is about the relationship with it. Like, it is very natural to be afraid because we value it. It is critical in our lives. But fear has this funny way of creating self-fulfilling prophecies when you listen to it. When you're afraid to take action because you don't want to take the wrong action, how much you want to bet you don't take any action, right? So if you notice you're afraid, it just means you care. It means it's important to you. And like Stacy said, do your research, talk about it with your friends, with your family, and take the lead. Honestly, like when it comes to anything in our health, be that physical, financial, spiritual, emotional, mental, like no one is going to do it for you. And sure, you might feel incapable, but we're all incapable until we take one step forward and then the next step forward. Or like Dory says, just keep
Keep
swimming.
swimming.
Um, so I really do appreciate all your insights. We could talk for hours, but unfortunately, we do have to come to a close. So tell everybody where they can find you.
Laura, thank you again for having me today. You can find me at bayviewfp.com. So it's Bayview, F as in Frank, P as in Paul.com. That's my website. I'm all over social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I do a weekly blog. I have a YouTube channel, which is at Bayview FP as well. And I do a newsletter. So I'm kind of all over the place right now. I did mention I launched my firm this year. You kind of have to lean into marketing at the beginning so that you can have clients. And that's what I'm doing. It's hard to miss me, I think, at this point. But again, very grateful that to be on your show today, and I really enjoyed the conversation.
Well, thank you. I will definitely hyperlink all the above to make it easier for our listeners to find you because a great way to start dating your money is listening to Stacy on YouTube or letting her newsletter pop in your inbox and just getting your weekly dose of money brilliance. But it is a very much shared experience that I'm just as grateful to have you here. I recognize of all the pillars within life coaching, finances is not my biggest strength. So I love having someone that I trust and can trust that you're going to work with people in a wholehearted way. So thank you for being brave enough to go out on your own. Thank you for fulfilling your mission. And cheers to women owning the world financially free.
I love it.
Well, until next time, guys, thank you as always for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me on today's episode of The Challenges of Change. If you're ready to stop stressing and reclaim your sense of worth, be sure to visit my website at www.changebychallenge.com. There, you'll find loads of resources, blog posts, and information on how to work with me, Laura, as your personal mindset coach. Remember, if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. Don't let burnout or any other obstacle hold you back from living your best life. Take the first steps towards positive transformation today. Thank you again for listening. Stay confident, stay inspired, and embrace the challenges of change. Until next time.